welcome to the 5.0 podcast. I am your host, Shane Hazen. Coming up on this episode, we are discussing Ridley Scott's The Duellists in lieu of his most recent released film, The Last Duel. Once again, I'm joined with Ted Haygrave.
Hey, it's me again.
Hey, it's Ted. How's it going, Ted?
Busy. You want me to rattle off what I've...
What'd you watch this week?
Well, since I think the last time we talked, you here on the podcast, I think I watched Die Another Day, of all things. One of the Pierce Bronson.
Why?
ones.
I watched Casino Royale after we recorded.
I know, I've been in a kind of a weird bond. I was watching bits and pieces of Moonraker, of all things, believe it or not. So, yeah.
Oh, was that?
Well, it is what it is,
I was complaining because Prime didn't have a Bond ready for whenever No Time to Die came out, and so that was the reason I watched mine.
Oh, yeah. So I've been kind of watching little extras and bits and pieces of Bond. And then I went on a streak here. It's like I saw the Jesus music. I saw Lamb.
We both saw Lamb.
Elvira's Haunted House.
Should we talk about Lamb real quick before?
Well, let me rattle off these and then we'll get
Okay.
back.
You're trying to get through the list.
Yeah, I'm trying to get through the list. Elvira's Haunted House, directed by our buddy Sam Orvin.
Yeah, from the Fury episode.
Right. Then it was The Last Duel. Then it was Dune.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was... the duel. Oh, the Tom Petty documentary, the new one.
The Bogdanovich one or the one
No,
after
the brand new one that's out in theaters. It played 2 nights here.
Oh, I didn't even know there was a
AMC.
new one.
It's about the making of the album, the Flowers. What's it called?
Wildflowers?
Yeah, it's about the making of the Wildflowers. They found all this 60 millimeter footage.
Is Dave Grohl in it?
No.
Oh,
Because
because he wasn't on the album. He was on. He was on the touring group.
No, they talked about Stan Lynch leaving and the new drummer on there. But yeah, that played at AMC like 2 nights. One that was it. And then the Duelist. And then last night I was with over in Owensboro seeing the latest movie by the Greg Sirsto.
Oh, for The Room.
The Room guy, not Tommy, but Greg.
All right.
He's got a new film. It's a horror film, and he was over, and Greg was there to talk about it. And there's a girl from Owensboro that's in the film, so it was interesting.
How was that?
It's promising. It had an interesting. I thought interesting mix of science fiction ish kind of thing with a gothic feel, but it's your typical horror slasher film, and it's making the festival rounds now.
Oh, hi, Greg.
So Lamb, you want to go back to Lamb?
Yeah. I saw it in Nashville and found out a day later that it was actually playing in Evansville. So the trip down. I don't think you should give away what really is the selling point of the movie, because the marketing has not given it away.
Well, funny enough that this kind of snuck up on me. I really didn't keep paying attention. Was this it was at Cannes, probably, I assume, or? I don't know. I just kind of like
I saw it's an A24 movie, and A24 is going to A24. Like their marketing is getting very specific on how they market stuff, and like elevated horror, especially when they put it out. It's just like, if A24 put it out, you got to see it.
Well, but is horror the right title for genre for this?
I think that's how they marketed it.
Yeah, and then like I said, I was standing by the ticket taker at the show place, and these 3 young guys came up. Reminded me of like me and Todd and Jim, like we were younger. So they just got
your friends.
Yeah,
your close friends.
Yeah, close friends. Just 3 guys, and they said they had no idea what they just said, we want to see this. They had no idea what they're getting into. I said, and Todd had already seen it before I saw it, and Todd goes, I don't know what I saw. That's what Todd's reaction was, and I was like, okay, this sounds really fascinating. And so I said, well, okay, guys, well, behave yourself in there because I want to be in there. And they stayed all the way to the credits.
Yeah.
And they said, I want to go home. They're going to go home and check the website and try to figure this film out.
No, the original story you told me was they're going to. You don't want to cuss on here, do you?
No, I think I might have been exaggerating. That's what. But that was the.
You told me they said, I'm going to Google the fuck out of this because it's the ending. I brought it up, but I didn't like the ending. So I've had conversations with other friends about the ending.
I know. Well, we had a conversation. I thought I was starting to sway you. I was trying to draw you back into it.
I don't really feel about talking negatively about it. So, but I mean, the thing that they're not showing is the thing that is worth seeing about it. It is hypnotic and very effective, well done. Like it's a very captivating game.
Meticulously paced, meticulously framed.
It is. I mean, I think it's the first. It felt like the first 30 minutes didn't have a lot of dialogue in it.
Yeah, It's creating atmosphere, creating mood.
Uh,
Yeah.
Otherwise, for me, I haven't done my any really significant Halloween watches. I rewatched Poltergeist the other night, and like someone, I don't know if we can do an episode on this, but someone's got like, and I think a lot of people have dived into this question, and maybe it's unanswerable. But the whole did Spielberg direct it or did Tobe Hooper direct it? It feels so much like a Spielberg movie, and I get why. Even though I think the evidence points clearly Tobe Hooper was there, but Tobe Hooper directed it, and Spielberg just was on set a lot. But the fact Spielberg was one of the 3 writers on it, wrote the story for it. You got Jerry Goldsmith feels like he's doing a John Williams score, but I mean, in the first half of it, especially.
Well, why? Why didn't Steven just direct it? I mean, what was it?
It feels like some weird shit happening in the same neighborhood as E.T. too. That's what the crazy thing is. Like the same suburb.
Did he just decide that Toby wasn't up to speed or something?
Did he have too much on his plate that year?
I don't know. I've never really fully examined that. I mean, I know the controversy.
I know there's a lot of people who feel strongly one way or the other about whether and the ones I've heard firmly say Tobe Hooper directed it.
And Toby's career is such a problematic filmography in some ways because you the promise of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, you're thinking great things, just like. But then again, did Romero, it's kind of like Romero's filmography too. I don't know.
Well, the scene I was in that definitely doesn't feel Spielbergian, that I was like kind of dreading because I remember scaring the shit out of me as a kid, but like it was fine now, is the scene where one of the researchers starts to have a dream sequence and he feels something messing up with his face, and then he starts tearing all the flesh off his face. It stands out from the movie. Even though
that was the rating problems too, wasn't that one? That was the scene caused the ratings controversy.
Supposedly it was this and Temple of Doom, but this is way before Temple of Doom. That's the other thing too.
Yeah, I saw it with my friend Timothy, and I remember at North Park, and I remember it's a pretty effective film depending on how you see it. When you see it and you didn't, and we were like, oh. And we came out and it was sheet lightning on the way home. Outside, and we were just like freaked out. Like we gotta get home.
Make sure not to turn on your TV. Like the strongest thing that I completely forgot about is what piece of music it opens with?
Exorcist? No, I don't know. I forgot.
The national anthem, because it's the music that plays whenever.
Right. When you used to sign on, television.
Sign off.
Or sign off or
something you're familiar with. Rest of the week, my nephew was over the last 2 nights, and I had fun showing him some movies. I've been trying for about a year and a half because he's really into design. He plays that Warhammer tabletop game. And I showed him The Thing a few years ago, and he's turned to me, he's like, this is the most amazing movie ever. And so I was trying to show him more design-based movies. I got him through Alien a few years ago, and for some reason I was like, but Aliens is the one you're going to love. And we keep watching the first 20 minutes and never getting through it. We finally finished it at Friday night. But the funnier one I showed him, we didn't get all the way through it.
Did he live up expectations?
He did. No, I knew he liked it. I think he was, the first, Aliens is structured in a way where it becomes a roller coaster at a certain point, and I think Cameron designed it that way. But by that nature, before the roller coaster, before the dip, like it's not you don't know you're about to watch a really intense movie, and he just kept watching that part over and over. So, but the other funny one when I showed him, and I set it up on his HBO Max so he can keep rewatching it. We watched Goodfellas.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. He had a fun reaction.
Now you have to have him listen to the podcast with Glenn Kitty.
All right, that's right. Yes, that's a great next one to watch. We didn't finish it, but I kept getting. We watched it over 2 nights. I was like, we got to get through the Copacabana scene.
I forgot a film, and it's the last one I saw last night, early in the morning. And it's a typical, and kind of ties into Halloween, The Incredible Shrinking Man, the Criterion release. You've never seen you never heard about this film? We've heard about it. I
didn't know Criterion was putting it out.
Yeah, it just came out this week on Criterion. I guess
I've never seen it.
But it's Jack Arnold, Creature from Black Lagoon. It came from outer space.
What year is it?
57, 56, something like that. And it has a really wild, crazy, unusual, atypical ending for a universal horror what's claimed to be a science fiction film.
Yeah,
it has this very existential ending. And it's really incredible. I mean, incredible. There you go, pun intended.
All right.
But it's a really it's got a really interesting critical following and cult following, and I've read about it over the years, and I just never have caught up to it.
I've never seen it.
Oh yeah, you'll enjoy it. You're gonna really get a kick out of it.
Well, speaking of never having seen it, we're jumping into the Duelist. I want to point out that we, for some reason, we did the math this week. You were, I think, 23 years older than me, so like 23 years of film going that you have on me.
Right.
And a lot of times we go back and forth, and sometimes it's generational, but a lot of times.
And I make you mad sometimes. Like this, I'll say, "You haven't seen this," and you roll your eyes.
Because I will then point out a movie you haven't seen, and you know the exact feeling I'm talking about, even though you got 20 years on me. There's just certain things that everyone has their blind spots. Everyone has movies they just have not seen. And
aren't you encouraged that when you hear like Edgar Wright? I remember when he was rattling off films he hadn't seen. I go, oh well, maybe I'm not so bad after all.
Yeah, you know what it is on Instagram today. I just saw Karina Longworth, the creator of You Must Remember This, saying last night she just saw David Cronenberg's The Fly for the first time.
Yeah, see,
there's always these odd, just they miss it. We all have them, and yet we're all embarrassed by them.
I'm embarrassed. Yeah.
Like, well, the craziest. There's a Norm Macdonald, rest in peace, Norm Macdonald joke where he talks about white lies, and say someone comes up to you and is like, "Hey, have you seen this movie that you haven't seen?" And you white lie and say, "Yeah." Why do I do that? Is this bit?
I know. I was about ready to say that. I was thinking, is it a white lie, or it's just an outright lie? I mean, I used to. I actually, I'm not going to name names, but I know somebody recently that I can see that he hasn't seen it, but he's just kind of nodding along, and you see that nod, and it's like, no, he hasn't seen it, but he's just kind of playing along. And I've done that several times, and I've actually flat out said, yeah. But it's like.
Well, I think that's the nature of lying, where sometimes it's just easier to deal with someone lying.
You're in that situation too, and you get to a point where you are considered. Everybody knows that, oh, this Ted's a film fanatic. Ted's a film fan,
right?
And they expect the expectations are there, and then that's where the embarrassment starts to kick in.
Well, there's also the corollary where whenever in the past where I have gone on someone like, oh, you haven't seen this, and they immediately have that embarrassed reaction, and I'm not wanting to embarrass someone, like. Sometimes I genuinely feel this way. Sometimes it takes me a second to be like, this is how I should feel about it. But I feel envy for someone to see a good movie for the first time.
Right. Oh, yeah, exactly. When somebody said like, oh, I'm going to go watch this. And I'm like, oh, man, I wish I could have those eyes again, that experience again.
All this being a preamble to saying, I was shocked when
I know.
I
was very embarrassed about.
You've never seen The Duelist. You were a big Ridley Scott fan, and you have never seen his very first film.
Right off the gate, here comes Alien 3 times in the theater. Here comes Blade Runner. I rushed up to see Someone to Watch Over Me, which a lot of people,
which I have not seen.
Yeah, which is a
I have not seen that, and Black Rain. Speaking of his 80s stuff, and then we'll go. I have a few other gaps with Ridley Scott.
It always that makes a big difference between the true film fans and just the film fans that are of certain genres, because nobody wanted to see Somebody Watch Over Me, but then they're all back for Legend. When Legend came out, because that was fantasy.
Legend's before Someone to Watch Over Me.
I think it's after.
No, Legend's 85. I think Someone to Watch Over Me was 86.
Well, then what was it right after Blade Runner?
No, it was about 2 years.
Was there something in between Blade Runner and?
Nope.
Okay, so he has.
Well, I'm going to look this up.
He's got 3 science fiction, fantasy. What do you want to call it? Genre.
Someone to Watch Over Me is 87. Legend is 85.
Okay, there you go. So after those three films, we thought, oh, here's the messiah of science fiction fantasy films, and then all of a sudden he does this little thriller.
I heard this. I haven't read it, but Harlan Ellison wrote this thing in around 85, saying that he'd met with Ridley Scott, and Ridley Scott wanted to be the John Ford of science fiction.
Well, yeah, but he didn't say that. He didn't.
Yeah, no, he didn't.
So I'm at. When Alien comes out, then Blade Runner, I am now becoming a very obsessive film fan. So I knew all about The Duelist. Harvey Keitel's in it. I'm like, and there's Carradine too.
It would have been hard to get a hold of too, right?
Oh yeah, that was still. And so finally, maybe when VHS, I don't know if I even had a VHS of it, but I certainly got the DVD, and I've been sitting on it ever since. And I can't believe. So when you said when you said let's do this, I said, oh, this is great. Let's do it. But
we ended up walking into watching The Last Duel separately to see it together in the same theater, and I was thinking about doing this episode. First off, Last Duel is Ridley Scott's last few movies. He makes so many so fast that it's hard to keep up, and it's not as low a quality level as, not to jump on your one of your favorites, but not a Clint Eastwood crapshoot. Like Ridley Scott's mediocre movies are still pretty. They're technically marvels. They're big spectacles. This is a good one.
Yeah, no, I agree. I was engaged.
I was surprised at how good it was.
As opposed to couple I can think off the top of my head. Exodus film and his
we
and the Robin Hood.
I should mention this is also the first time we've done a director's either filmography or this is the only episode we've done of a director twice. We did for episode 52 we did The Counselor.
I know,
so we talked a lot about Ridley Scott there.
Well, I know, but there's another one I haven't seen, and we were just talking about it right before we started recording. I haven't seen White Squall. That was another one, and I can't, why? I have the DVD. In fact, a few weeks ago I came across it. I said I am going to watch this because I thought, I'm a Ridley Scott loyalist, and I thought I was always there at the theater for his films, and I missed that one somehow.
Well, you mentioned Exodus and Robin Hood. I have not seen those, which I think I mentioned on our
because lackluster. Why? Because lackluster reviews.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just kind of prevented you.
But even then, when I was going through his filmography, I remember ones that I was excited about and then ended up being kind of disappointed about. Like, do you remember American Gangster? Do you remember Body of Lies?
Yeah. Actually, I think I like Body of Lies. And I think I just saw that Oscar Isaac's in that, I think.
Oh, I don't. That makes sense. And Body of Lies, I do remember being pretty good. American Gangster is Ridley Scott with Harris Savitas, and I remember being some of the most gorgeous movies. I was really...
Well, this is going to be terrible to say this, but I was thinking American Gangster. I'm thinking... Ridley Scott, American. I mean, it just, to me, I think Ridley Scott, European, British, international.
I think Richard Price wrote on it was the reason I was saying, but American is a little too.
And it's just stupid for me to think that because G.I. Jane or Thelma and Louise.
Well, American is a very it's more in literary circles. Again, it has a tendency to be too loaded of a additive to a title, but.
And it doesn't get bandied about it in when people talk gangster films. Nobody really talks about it.
I hate to say it, rightfully so. I mean, Ridley Scott's pace, like this is going to be one of the things I want to discuss in this episode, especially because you were talking about you're going from Blade Runner to Legend, and then it seems Legend on. Although it really kicked in for me, it was after Matchstick Men. But for someone who used to make divisive, bold,
beautiful looking.
Graphically gorgeous, just why has Ridley Scott made so many forgettable movies after a certain point? And is it his pace?
Yeah, I wonder, is this going to be weird to say that he's like maybe like a Woody Allen, but he's on a blockbuster level?
I don't think that's weird.
It's like Woody's are small budget films.
I would like to think Ridley Scott likes his movies more than Woody Allen likes his movies.
But yeah, I mean, it's just like. For every gladiator, there's like Exodus or Robin Hood where you're just going,
Well, I want to do the parallels. The Last Duel stars Matt Damon, Adam Driver, Jodie Comer, and Ben Affleck. It's written by Affleck and Damon and Nicole Holofcener, who was an odd pairing or
yeah. I thought that let's mention that for a second. There's like the Bond film. You have what's her name from Fleabag?
Yeah, that's Phoebe Waller-Bridge. Yeah, and she.
So I mean,
yeah.
Unexpected Writers. I mean, I'm not.
Phoebe Waller-Bridge, I think, has come up as a really good. I don't know if she's script doctoring a lot, but she's like you read her introduction to Fleabag. It's a really good writer's prompt.
I'm not trying to make this a male female thing at all.
Sure,
it just.
Although there's something to be male stories being written by it's
Bond,
good.
It's James Bond, yeah. I mean,
well, especially with Last Duel, half the point is like Affleck and Damon wrote the first two acts, and then. Last Duel has got a Rashomon structure, and the third is from the woman's point of view, and then Holofcener writes the last third of it.
And Holofcener, I mean, she's kind of forgotten. She's kind of like one of these alternate independent directors that she's solid.
I don't know if she's forgotten. She's respected. People
don't know me, but within inner circles,
when she does script doctoring like this, I guess she does this pretty consistently.
A lot of some of my friends I would go to and rattle off her filmography. They wouldn't have never seen any of them.
Well, does that say about your friends, or what does that?
No, she's just
okay.
she's
okay.
No, I think because hardly any of her films played here in Evansville.
That's fair.
See what I'm saying?
That's fair.
I mean, it's more of an independent thing. The respect. I mean, regardless of the respect or not, it's just her profile's not that big, but amongst film fans like obsessives like us, we knew about her.
Right. Well, so a lot of the story around The Last Duel, though, is that the obnoxious. I guess with the pandemic, movie going coming back, we got to come back to the same old narratives of like box office failure whenever. And it's just like adult movies don't make money. Like it's And yes, it came and went. And it was probably expensive, although there's way many more mitigating circumstances to it. But
Maybe this. I mean, I'm thinking maybe this article is just clickbait.
yes.
Social, you know.
Oh yeah.
Don't.
Oh god. Yeah. It's lazy journalism. I'm not like
It's
lazy entertainment.
It's
journalism
an easy way to
is
get
worse.
attention and make us talk about it. You know.
Well, so
let's go back and just basically tell the plot. I guess should you?
The Last Duel.
Yeah, just kind of lay the landscape for
The
it.
Last Duel is
1300s.
It's the 1300s in France, and it takes place over a course of many years, and it's Matt Damon's character ends up marrying Jodie Comer, and after a certain point, she accuses Adam Driver, who Matt Damon and Adam Driver's characters have fought together for long periods of time over the years, but their relationship has gotten tense, and she accuses him of rape. And then they have to have what is known as it's not the last legal duel in Europe, it's the last judiciary duel in Europe. That was a real event.
Yeah, based on real event. And you're presented with Adam Driver as a really
very magnanimous, nice
guy, gracious guy. Matt Damon's character is kind of a hothead, kind of a pig-headed, kind of a stubborn.
It's very interesting casting because he's the one that's like constantly mad that life didn't treat him well.
Right. So, and then like I said, like Shane said earlier, it's in a Rashomon structure. So you get from Adam Driver's view, you get it from Matt Damon's view, and you get from the girl's view.
Jodie Comer.
And now who's Jodie Comer? Because she was kind of new to me.
Well, speaking of Phoebe Waller-Bridge's, Killing Eve. She's from the show
right, which
Eve.
I haven't seen, so I've heard good things about it. So.
Yeah, and then she was in Free Guy, which I haven't seen either.
Which
I mean, she's just starting out. She's in House of Gucci, which the other thing you love talking about was that Ridley Scott Space. Here we go again. His next movie's coming out in a month and a half.
And one of those things I should write down on a journal. It's like, here I am to see the latest Ridley Scott film, and I'm seeing a trailer for the next Ridley Scott film in the same auditorium.
Well, the reason I wanted to go to the Duelist for this is that Ridley Scott seems very spry. He's in his 80s. He doesn't seem like he's going to slow down anytime soon. I mean, fingers crossed. You can never, health is private, but like he seems like he's going to go for another 10, 15 years. But a man who makes a movie called The Last Duel, it's interesting. Then you go back in his filmography. His very first film is called The Duelist. And then you watch it, there's a ton of parallels. Like Notre Dame. One of my favorite things in Last Duel is you see Notre Dame being built, but it both takes place in France. It's about duelists over a long period of time. You have American actors playing Frenchmen. Oddly kind of cast that.
Very good.
It's also got a very these prideful multi-decade conflicts. There's a lot of odd overlap.
Yeah, we ought to talk about it's during the takes place in the Napoleonic Wars.
Mm-hmm.
Keith Carradine and Harvey Keitel are fighting for for Napoleon. They're one of them's a hussar. They may be both hussars. I'm not sure.
There's it's structured between 6 different sections, and it's 1800 through 1816.
And basically, it's really a bizarre. I'm kind of curious to see what your reaction was.
I had seen it before.
Yeah.
That was one of the reasons why I was like, "Well, you haven't seen this, Ted?"
Keith Carradine is.
You were seeing it for this, so your reaction is more.
Yeah, Keith Carradine is sent to go. Oh, I kind of knew a lot about it. It's one of those things too. Over the years, of course, I've read about it and know about it. So it wasn't super fresh, but it was very. I mean, to see it all together, I'd seen clips before.
Well, the most startling thing to me about rewatching it, I remember this a little bit, but over the years, I've kind of come into that camp where. I have my favorite Kubrick movies, but one of the ones that I find shockingly rewatchable, especially because it took me years to actually get through for the first time, is Barry Lyndon. And Barry Lyndon is so rewatchable right now, and its aesthetic is something that is so defining and interesting. And watching The Duelist come 2 years after Barry Lyndon, and Ridley Scott being such a Kubrick fanatic, I'm shocked that for someone there's no Ridley Scott movie I can think of that I would call really derivative of in any way, and it's shocking to me how this just takes Barry Lyndon's aesthetic.
Well, yeah, he had to start somewhere. He had to get his feet wet and his toe in the pond.
The idea being that you're shooting it in painterly tableaus of like 1800s style painting, and also, but he also does this way of framing and distancing the emotion inside the scene so that all these people are dead, but they felt this strongly about this then, but now they're dead. And here's a painterly version of what they look like.
That's very interesting. That made me think of something new. I want to get back to tell the listeners to the plot of the film.
Oh, sorry.
But what 2001 kind of how influenced the science fiction genre after it.
Do you think Barry Lyndon did that for period pieces?
For that certain time period, almost hardly any colonial or Napoleonic era or any of those eras.
What other movies are you thinking of?
Well, I'm just thinking even when you watch something like The Patriot, there's probably scenes inside the interiors and the way they light things, because Barry Lyndon really.
Cinematographers are always inspired by painting, and is a good reference source.
Well, the big deal about Barry is that he came up with this lighting, the way to light it. Especially, he actually came up with a special lighting way to light the film. Right? You remember that?
That's overblown. I mean, the bigger deal is like they had the lenses that were so wide open from NASA that you can film by candlelight.
Okay, maybe the candlelight thing. I think in a typical Hollywood film of the 40s or 50s, they do a time, it's everything's just flat.
As big a deal as that sequence is, there is a scene in Grapes of Wrath where Greg Toland lights by candlelight.
Oh, I'm sure there are exceptions. No.
They're both marvels.
Right.
They're both amazing scenes of lighting too.
But think about Mohicans. Like the cabin when they're having dinner with the
a candlelit thing was a little easier as things went on, but not much easier.
Yeah. Keith Carradine he's a soldier. He's sent to go get Keitel, and tell him to go to his quarters. He's reprimanded because Keitel loves to fight duels. Keitel's a hothead. We don't realize how much a hothead until we meet him, and he just goes off. Right off the bat, he just goes off on Carradine.
He wants to have his second deadly duel of the day.
Right, and so he goes on, and then and Carradine's like, I don't want to do this, and he's like, what the heck is going on here? And then there's a series of duels over the years as we progress, and we kind of follow Carradine more about his life because he ends up getting married and stuff, whereas opposed to Keitel's more of a mystery.
This is based on the Joseph Conrad story. The American title for it is Point of Honor, and I read a little bit of the short story, not much of it going into this, but it's odd because it feels like the movie, the other distancing effect is it should have, like you said, it's from Carradine's point of view, it should have more. Carradine's the aristocratic character, but you don't, and the class struggles are part of Keitel's character.
There's a lot, there's a lot.
But it's not really in the movie, though.
No.
It's not.
By the way, speaking of Joseph Conrad, we're talking about Joseph Conrad's story now. You correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I'm sure there's a lot of subtext, or there's a lot of metaphorical things with Conrad writing in this book, or is it just straight out, just these two guys dueling? In other words, in this.
Well, I didn't finish the short story, and I don't know. I'm not familiar with Conrad, but I don't think there's much metaphorical in it.
Okay,
what do you think? What do you think?
I'm correct now. See, I'm going to really embarrass myself. My literature and expertise here is very lacking. We're talking about the guy who wrote Heart of Darkness, right?
Yeah.
And
Lord
Jim.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's always dealing with another level of subject matter, as opposed to just the literal level you're reading at.
Yeah, but I mean, the subject matter we're talking about is literally called the official title elsewhere is The Duel. This is conflict between two people.
Right, but I'm saying so. There's more than just these two. This hothead wanting to fight this guy to the death. There's more going on to this film subtextually.
I don't know. I would imagine so. I mean, I don't. It didn't feel like what I read had Heart of Darkness level of metaphor going on.
Okay, well, okay. Well, I mean, what did you take from it? How do you feel about the film? Do you like the film?
Oh yeah. I think it's more. It's one of our best directors, one of our boldest directors. It really reminds me that when he was coming on the scene, that he wasn't. He was really fully formed, but not as fully formed as he's going to be, especially for someone who, like, his next two movies are I think his defining movies. But you also think of how, like, such a talent, such a design thing with problems in his storytelling come throughout all his movies. You just realize how much I've taken him for granted.
Well, yeah, true. Yeah, and then we ought to mention how this feature film was fully formed right off the bat, which sometimes is unusual. A lot of directors, we see them stumble and work their kinks out before they get to a really good place. Of course, we got Orson Welles or the Coen brothers.
Well, Ridley Scott also like has a very small to go with Malcolm Gladwell 1,000 Hours. I don't know if he directed a full 1,000 commercials, but he directed so many commercials. I didn't realize he started out on TV though when I was doing some research on this. He directed some episodes for the BBC. He started as a designer there, and then he quit, and then he went into advertising or mainly advertising. I watched some of his ads too over the years, like the really striking ones that seems to be mostly remembered for, especially in Europe, is his Chanel No. 5 ads.
Oh.
But obviously his most famous one, which is half of the subject of the Steve Jobs movie, is his Macintosh 1984 ad.
Oh, okay. But
which actually I should mention, that's what really is between Blade Runner and Legend there.
Think about, an Alien and Blade Runner, and we all just like, okay, who is this guy? Let's figure it Ridley Scott, and blah, blah, blah. The main thing I remember, the takeaway back then was huge commercial maker. And he took all the visuals of the commercial making, and there was two other peers at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I always lumped them in with Adrian Lyne and Alan Parker.
Yeah,
all of a sudden these British guys showed up, and they're these really slick visual lighting things.
Well, he worked a lot with his brother later too, who when he became over, Tony Scott really jumped it even more. But like there's an aesthetic that came from there that I am obsessed with. It's a lot of smoke, a lot of heart lights, but and at the same time, like a lot of cinematographers are going to try to find ways to like justify certain lighting rigs. Like it has to be an accentuation of how a natural room looks naturally. Like when Roger Deakins did Blade Runner 2049, part of the reason that movie looks so completely crazy is like they came up with the philosophy of your lines, like, how much the light is motivated in Blade Runner? Not at all. So Roger Deakins, you don't have to do this at all. You can write light in the most expressionistic ways you want. And that's how Ridley Scott would always do. Like you'd always see these like shimmering lights on walls coming up nowhere. Yeah.
So anyway, did you buy Harvey Keitel in the period piece? That's always been an interesting thing. I mean, Keith Garrett even can be, even though Keith's.
Well, you know who Ridley Scott originally wanted for this?
No.
Michael York and Oliver Reed.
Well, there you go.
This actually gets to something.
Oh my gosh.
This that
would have been. Could you imagine because that's Musketeers. That's Athos versus D'Artagnan.
Oh no! I walked right into that. I think one of the consistent things I find going through his filmography is I was thinking this during the Last Duel, how wonky it is, the casting of Matt Damon and Ben Affleck. We should mention Ben Affleck is amazing in the Last Duel, but how wonky his casting is mainly of his main roles. It seems like Scott is always like, I'll make it work with a cast that will get me the money, and then he turns out everyone beneath the line is well cast, really well.
Well, I wrote down names for that because I'm watching this now, a 1977 film, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I recognize all these people because those are the kind of films I saw around the time. I saw a lot. I've always loved.
The
British
only one
films.
I would really point out is Gay Hamilton, who was the cousin in Barry Lyndon, which also really brings it up. But that was really the one I wrote down. Who'd you have?
Well, I mean, first I want to go back to that Oliver Reed, Michael York thing you said. That's a revelation because think about it. Oliver Reed is an eccentric, kind of a hothead type guy on and off screen.
You think?
And the Keitel's kind of. I mean, it's like these are like the American versions of Oliver Reed and Michael York.
I mean, what's so funny is you went. I didn't even think who to cast too. I just didn't think much of it. I just got the names down. You knew exactly who was cast too, and it makes total sense.
Oh my gosh, that would have been add such a weird, interesting intertextual level to it if they had done that. No, but you got Robert, the kind of the big general that kind of reprimands Keith Garrett. That's Robert Stevens. Who was married to Maggie Smith at one time, a very critically lauded actor. He's Sherlock Holmes in Billy Wilder's The Private Lives of Sherlock Holmes.
Really?
Yeah.
I saw another movie I have not seen.
But then if for the British fans out there listening to us, as I know there's so many, John McNeary and Alan Armstrong are British guys you would have seen all over the place. And Alan Webb, the old uncle, he was in a lot of interesting things. I'm not going to sit here and rattle off their filmographies, but the narrator, that shocked me.
Who's the narrator?
Stacy Keach.
You're kidding?
No,
I totally didn't recognize.
And I'm like, that's bizarre, especially for an international British,
When's Fat
70s.
City? Fat City's like 73, isn't it?
Yeah. So you got Stacy Keach.
I forget Stacy Keach in the 70s.
I thought the lead lady, Donna Quick, interesting career. Nothing. She never really. I guess maybe a lot of stage. I don't know. I thought she was a little interesting because I think she looked a little bit too modern looking for my taste in a French film.
Sure.
And then,
which again is we're talking about 2 French films in a row where it's American actors and like look very big American current American actors.
And then, really interesting, Keith Carradine ends up marrying an actress called Christina Rains, who her main claim to fame is The Sentinel. That was right before a big horror film. I think it's Frankenheimer, I think. But her career never really took off. I always thought she was like, if you can't get Barbara Hershey, you get Christina Rains.
Okay.
She's in Nashville.
Oh, and who's she in Nashville?
I'm not sure. I forgot I didn't look at the character, but I was looking up her filmography, and I forgot. Oh yeah, she is in Nashville. And she's I don't know what part, but it could both. Of course.
I was kind of stuck by Carradine. I keep thinking of him in Deadwood and how like there's the feeling of him being like the 70s. He's so boyish, and then like he came into his voice much later. But
well, of course, a lot of people are always going to start and stop with him at Nashville.
I mean, that's why I went to Nashville with this. Yeah, exactly what I was thinking. No, the big observation I had, which I'm actually kind of proud of this, is Harvey Keitel in this movie. I went down the filmography. Harvey Keitel is in the first debut film of Ridley Scott, Martin Scorsese, Quentin Tarantino, Paul Schrader, and not friend of the podcast, James Toback. Yeah, and like I was kind of wondering, like how would you, besides his commercials, how would you Ridley Scott sell stars on this movie? And part of me was thinking, like, if Ridley Scott went to Harvey Keitel and said, I want to do a kind of a Barry Lyndon version, although he was trying to tell people that he was mad that this movie was sold in America as an art film, and he's like, I'm making a Western. A French Western, but a French medieval 1800s Western. But anyway, if he's trying to sell to Harvey Keitel probably goes back to Scorsese. And if you go in Scorsese's book on American film or his documentary on it, it ends with Barry Lyndon because he's like, I'm making films now. I don't feel comfortable talking about the rest of them. But Barry Lyndon's the last one he talks about being blown away by, and is one of his favorite Kubricks.
Yeah, I always felt bad. I always felt sorry for Harvey because it looked like it was going to be the Scorsese Keitel team, and then
it turned to De Niro.
And De Niro shows up on Main Streets, and it's like, let's go with Bobby.
Well, the crazier thing, I didn't end up doing the research on this, but I was trying to figure out the timeline on what was the movie Keitel would have gone to after being fired from Apocalypse Now. I think it was Fingers, but I'm not sure. But so it would have been, he would have gone from this to Apocalypse Now and then got fired like 4 weeks in. I don't remember.
Do you think that kind of put him on the blacklist for a while, getting fired from Apocalypse?
I don't think so. I don't think so. Dude, he still did some interesting.
Oh no, he's always had an interesting, quirky career.
I kind of looked up his other stuff. What's the Peter Hyams Saturn?
Oh, Saturn 3.
Yeah.
No, that's
not Peter Hyams.
It's not Peter Hyams.
It's Stanley Donen.
Stanley Donen of all things, yeah. But they have a big, then he shows up in Bad Lieutenant. He got critical credit again for that when he showed up on that. But it's kind of been a really quirky, interesting career. But hey, we want to mention, we go back before we get further along, the casting. 2 other people that show up really almost like cameos, but big.
Right. We did miss the big one.
Albert Finney. Big time. And at the time, in 77, this guy was big. Tom Conti, the doctor, who gives him the medicine. He was kind of a big time European international star. He was in a film with Julie Walters, I think, that really put him on the top or something. But
no, I mean the Albert Finney one stood out to me, especially. But
no, but if you were an avid film goer in '77, Tom Conti would have been. Oh, there's Tom Conti, So yeah, it's a really fascinating cast, fascinating look. See, here's the reason I think there's more to this film. I mean, and maybe I don't know if you want to talk about this or if you were getting ready to bring it up. First you're going like, what? Keitel is just a jerk. Why is he doing this? You
really do.
You're just like, this is so frustrating. And then then I had to go back and find out, I think I know if he's justifying just because of what's one little thing. It's really weird. He's such a hothead. But then the film ends with, I don't want to, I guess I can.
No, I'm okay talking about the ending. Well, I mean, I have some stuff I want to bring up about the ending.
Well, the end, they both are alive at the end, and Carradine's finally put an end to it, and he's going to live happily ever after with his wife and on his estate and everything. We get the shot of Keitel, and he's got the Napoleon hat, the stereotypical Napoleon cap.
Are you talking about the penultimate shot of the movie, which is a gorgeous shot?
He's just standing there, surveying the landscape.
Yeah,
that's the
this
end.
is the most painterly thing. It's on a dolly. It kind of has this like, it's basically like if a vertigo zoom was in Barry Lyndon, like, and then it goes on for a while.
It's like, well, it's kind of like the ending of Lamb with what Naomi you were frustrated with. Like,
Right.
what are we seeing? Why are we seeing her standing there forever?
This is more ignoring.
I
Lamb.
know, I'm
ignoring Lamb. This is a more effective, loaded. What the film's been building. You think it explains why he was such a hothead the whole time? That there was something Napoleonic about it.
Well, it looks like he. If you want to go try to make a literal reason why he's doing what he's doing, Carradine's kind of just neutral about Napoleon, and Keitel is fanatical about following Napoleon. And so when he's taking him back to his quarters in that very first time when he was going to retrieve him, he says some, how dare you spit on Napoleon's name or something like that. And Carradine goes, I could care less. I mean, and that's right. That's the if you just take it literally, that's the turning point. That's what clicks. Keitel is, I'm going to kill this guy.
Well, half the reason there's always these time gaps between them is like, it was something that like I didn't really pick up until this viewing is there's a stipulation that said that people in the same ranks can't duel with each other. So like Carradine keeps getting promoted before Keitel.
Yeah. So yeah, so what I'm saying is I can't rest the film on just that, just a literal thing. It seems like, because at the end, especially because of the ending shot, he lingers on Keitel thinking and looking over the landscape, looking like Napoleon, weirdly enough. And I'm thinking there has to be, what are we supposed to take from this? There's something going on here that's much more layered in a metaphorical and analogous way or something. You know?
I didn't pick up on that, but I think you're onto something.
Yeah.
Because what little I read of the Conrad short story made class issue more bigger than anything else.
And I mean, and I can't believe it just comes down to him, like, he's just standing there and he's sorry that he never won the duel and never got to kill him. No, and he learned his lesson. He's going to be a good boy now. I don't think that's
that definitely is not the
right.
Yeah, I get you on that.
So there's something, if Scott and the Ridley's going to linger on that, I can't believe it's just a beauty shot and he learned his lesson. There has to be some more going on with that.
Well, the big parallels I drew was that certain things in the very final duel is a strong parallel to the end fight in Blade Runner, where you have two protagonist antagonists fighting. To be fair, in Blade Runner, only one has a gun, but both of them have guns. They're chasing each other over a period of space, and there's actually literally
good Shane.
Well, no, one of my favorite shots in all cinema in Blade Runner is this shot where it's a really tight close-up of Deckard's gun with water dripping down the walls and in the background, and there's water dripping sounds throughout this entire scene. But then it also ends with one of them ready to go for the kill, does not do the kill, and then they gives up their duel.
It may come down. I mean, I don't want to overthink it, and maybe I'm not smart enough, but I just think maybe we're lingering on the shot. I mean, Keitel's taking it all in and trying to figure out what exactly he's been doing all these years.
Well, because the cool thing about the shot that I just remember like seeing it, Ridley Scott is capable of occasionally, like, you think of the very opening shot of Blade Runner, like he can every once in a while come up with an image that is so overwhelmingly beautiful. It throws you off. And so, but at the same time, he's also very conscious of pacing that for that. The reason the titles in Blade Runner are very plain font is because he knows that shot's going to overwhelm you. So this penultimate shot in The Duelists is this gorgeous shot, but it's not the last shot. The last shot is a shot of Harvey Keitel's eyes, really close up shot of Harvey Keitel's eyes, and then it fades out.
Yeah. So very, and like I said, you get this interesting narration popping in and out by Stacy Keach of all.
I did not catch this at all.
And,
that's crazy.
It's in the credits at the very end. So
one of the others the things I want to talk about that I think is really effective and show how amazing he's going to be is, I think it's the third duel where it's the horse riding duel, the one where Carradine really thinks he's going to die.
Yeah.
the editing in
Yeah.
that's where you start seeing like this is someone who's thinking beyond. Like it's there was all these it's you have these like paced up sounds of tension growing up, and then you have these really hard sound out cuts in the middle of it, the subjective cuts. Uh,
Yeah. No. Yeah, it was a very interesting sequence, and yeah, you can tell someone doing this right off this for this first film. Uh,
he's showing off in a good way.
it's interesting. First films too. I'm like he had a nice budget. I mean, I
No,
guess,
that's the thing. He's. I mean, Ridley Scott perpetually always complains that he doesn't have a budget, and that part of his talent is making everything look bigger than it is, which, makes sense if someone is so consistently good at making scale from nothing. But he says like the whole tableau shootings now was because they didn't have the money for it.
somehow if someone had faith in this guy, they let him do this film as his first film. It's interesting. I mean, I don't know if the company or the producer or whatever, but
It was up for the Grand Prix at Cannes, won for best debut.
oh really?
Yeah.
Makes sense. It's really interesting because Ridley comes across. It seems to me Ridley comes across as a force of nature. You don't want to mess with Ridley. You watch him on. I was watching some extras on we were doing a Blade Runner talk a while back and I was doing a lot of featurette watching and stuff, and they brought Ridley in for the remastering and for the new versions, and he's like, he's got a cigar and he's just looks like you don't take any flack from him.
Well, he seems very just like he's one of those directors that I don't think is necessarily the best way to direct, but for a studio system makes sense the best way to direct. Be decisive, and he knows to be decisive, and like it doesn't. My argument would be like this is why you get some films where you have a lot of decisions in them, but they're not necessarily neither here nor there. It's the disposability factor of like I don't know. I started this out by pointing out that like Ridley Scott's so visionary that you start to take him for granted when he's making a movie. Or
a couple of little things I thought. The sneezes.
Oh,
Have they also when he has to sneeze?
Oh,
and everything has to stop because he has to sneeze.
uh,
I thought that was kind of an interesting. That was probably a very humorous thing in the theater with an audience, maybe. I thought the tonal change was interesting. Almost near the end, when he's settled down and he starts courting this late Christina Rains, and it seems like when he starts courting Christina Rains, and all of a sudden he's retired. Almost like it's all kind of the music's happy and looks gorgeous, and we're in a
Merchant
Ivy movie. Almost seems like, doesn't it? Did you feel that way? Because you had this intensity going, and then all of a sudden it's just like, oh, it's just like it's.
Is that what's supposed to be the pathos of the movie, the heart of the movie?
I don't know. I just thought that was really an interesting thing. Oh, we forgot Edward Fox shows up too. I forgot. I'm looking at my notes.
I don't know Edward Fox.
He's the commander that comes to him at the estate when he's getting ready to get married, and then he runs him to him at the saloon and says, "Yeah, well, you can find him here."
Okay.
He's a very British actor. It's James Fox's brother. I met Edward Fox in London one time, actually. What's the deal with Ridley Scott being listed as operator in the credits?
That's what he did. He's I mean, you've read all the future noir, the Paul Salmon, Blade Runner stuff. That was his big issue. He was so used to British crews, and he was his own operator. And then
on the camera.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And when he came to America, he couldn't operate, and he didn't like that. It was something that came from his commercial work.
Then how does Soderbergh get away with it?
I mean, this is a union issue that's come up throughout the year. Some people get around it. Some people find ways around it. Some people push for it. Some people are better when they don't do it. And sometimes, it's people are like, it's my hand.
Interesting. One other little note. I thought it was interesting near the beginning of the film. There's a bunch of ducks or geese on the
right. There's one of the first. It's almost one of the first notable things in the movie.
And we get that we get a sequence in the Last Duel of a flock. I'm thinking that's almost a go-to thing. Almost time.
He has his.
Well, not really, Scott. Just I think almost any director or any time period piece that takes place in the
geese,
the geese, or just on the little dirt road, and a little girl flock. With the I don't know, it's not the word flock is probably not appropriate. But
I did want to mention Pauline Kael gave this a good review.
Oh,
and one of the lines from her review is she pointed out this shot when during the romance scene toward the end where Carradine and Christina Rains kind of kiss in a horse stable, and she points out that there's these white horses nuzzling in the background, almost at the same spot where like they come together in the foreground. And she said, "This is either the luckiest shot a beginning movie director ever caught, or the most entranced bit of planning a beginning ever dared.
It's it's an interesting scene because I think the horses are doing their own thing, kissing and nuzzling or muzzling, whatever the proper word is. And I think Christina and Keith are almost going to lose it. If you watch it, I think they go off script in a little bit.
I just didn't catch any of this.
And it's not a stable. It's actually out in the field. When he asked her to marry her.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Watch that scene again. It's really interesting. Did you, it's interesting with this film, the Duelist, 1977. I think Ridley's, a lot of these, when you do those kind of pieces, you see a lot of directors evoking the great paintings of the time.
Sure. Yeah.
And images, and even totally stealing from, or doing homage to it or whatever. By the time of the Last Duel, I don't see that in that. I see
no.
Ridley. It's just pure Ridley.
I mean, I really focused on the Barry Lyndon aspect of it, but there's this I don't remember the painting, but there's these tableau at the beginning of the movie. You see them bookended where there's
which one in which film?
In Duellists, where there's it's like a pear and a piece of cheese, and then you see the same frame later in the movie, and like the pear is rotted.
Remember that kind of happened to Robin and Marion. Remember the opening and closing of the apples?
No. So from this, Ridley Scott actually wanted to make he was going to stay in this lane. He was going to make Tristan and Isolde next, and then supposedly he saw Star Wars. And what's funny is Tristan and Isolde was finally made, his version of it was made, that he produced in 2006 with James Franco and Sophia Myles, directed by Kevin Reynolds. One of your favorites. Or not favorites, but someone you admire.
Do I? What makes you think I admire Kevin Reynolds?
We brought it up on the Kevin Costner.
Well, no. I always just say he's his buddy and he's his partner.
I think Kevin Reynolds is solid.
No, he's worthy of examining.
I like Kevin Reynolds, Chad. I didn't realize. I thought you liked him too.
Well, no, you make it sound like he's one of my big heroes.
Okay, all right. I oversold that.
Yeah, you oversold that one, but. Well, and of course we can't forget. He was going to work on Dune. That was, Ridley.
Well, Dune is going to come up next week. We're going to talk a little bit. For those who are weekly listeners, next week's episode is going to be
out there. So.
Yeah, the two of you out there. Dune is going to be next week's episode, so we're going to definitely talk about quite a bit about Ridley Scott's version, amongst other. Not a bit, because there's not a ton out there.
And Jodorowsky got a feature film on his version.
Yes, this is all going to be on next week's episode.
Oh, sorry. Preview. Well, we didn't really talk much about the new one, the Last Duel.
I'm a little wary just because my spoiler strategy so far, or philosophy so far, has been statute of limitations, and this is a newer one. But at the same time, should we just put a spoiler warning for Last Duel right now?
Well, I think you almost can figure. In fact, I think somebody said I knew where this is heading, or they thought that the third part was redundant because we knew exactly.
Well, my issue with the movie, which took me a while, is like the first third is really dry, and there's a piece of it. There's a moment of energy where, like towards the end of the first section, where I realized, we're going to be seeing this 3 times. That's where I was like, okay, I'm into the movie. But before that point, I wasn't feeling it.
By the way, speaking of Ridley and how prolific he is and his look of his films, do you think he now relies too much on using computers to make the color palette of the film?
Well,
it's quick and easy, but his films now have all these moody looks, and I'm almost thinking it's not because of the physical lighting; it's because of the.
No, it's physical lighting. So film stocks or specific color temperature things he's doing. I think I don't. I mean, there seems to be a lot of times single color. Like Last Duel is very blue.
Yeah, it's just like, oh gosh, I mean, so blue. So this kind of color tone deal he goes with in a lot of his films. I'm just like, I don't know. And a lot of and directors use it as shortcuts. I'm not saying he does.
It's tricky because when it works. I mean, The Martian's, I think, kind of red, but red on purpose.
Yeah. So forget about that Matt Damon film that he did.
Yeah.
He's
done a lot. He's done a lot.
No, I thought that I walked out going, I like this film a lot. It makes you think, and it's obviously
this movie grew after I thought more about it. It's definitely one of those ones I thought about a lot.
It's a very Me Too movement.
It's a very Me Too movie. Yeah.
If that's something you're interested in.
But okay, so we've already put the spoiler warning. One of the things that you and I don't know if we were on the same page about, that I found odd about the movie is, you see the first section, you see the rape accusation for Adam Driver's character happens. Second section, you see it from his point of view. Third section, you see it from her point of view. In both those two where you see it, to me, it felt like a rape both times. It was so weird that, because when we ended up talking about it, we were talking about Adam Driver is so charming in his section. He's the hero of his section. And it seems odd that he goes to like, he's like, I love you. And then he forces himself on her.
Yeah, I didn't. I didn't really buy that too, but also it seems like he might be a wolf in sheep's clothing.
That's true.
His whole personality is a facade that we all get sucked into.
And this goes away saying your other reaction, which I wholeheartedly agree with. Adam Driver is really just one of our most watchable actors, American actors right now.
You just can't. He's just so fun to watch. His choices, what he does.
His choices are always feel right.
Yeah, and so I don't know. It's really, but it is worth. I don't let any stupid headlines sway you from watching this and seeing it. It's and I think even like, even with Robin Hood or Exodus, ones you haven't seen and the ones I kind of go, they're always worthy. I mean, he's got such a great cast and such great looking films. I subscribe to my theory where even the directors that you like, his weak films are always interesting too.
I don't even think this is a weak film.
No, this one isn't. No,
I forgot to mention one of my favorite little details is appearing in both movies is Notre Dame, and like you get to see Notre Dame getting built in this,
which is kind of course timely because of what happened to Notre Dame recently. And
oh yeah, I didn't even think of that.
And the plague is mentioned several times.
I didn't catch the.
Oh yeah, he died of the plague and stuff like that. So
I didn't draw the parallels.
Well, the pandemic, plague.
That's what I mean. I didn't draw the parallels.
Just it seems like a lot of the. I mean, the Bond,
I drew more parallels in the Bond movie than I did in
the Bond film, the Dune. All of these films have these really weird parallels being delayed and coming out with the midst of this pandemic going on. It's just really strange. But do you think it's going to get some flack because it's Affleck and Damon team up? We haven't had.
I think the one narrative that I thought was coming out that was nice positively, which was one of those things that made me think, I should get around to seeing this, is I think Ben Affleck's performance in this is getting called out properly as like, it's one of the, and the thing is, it's not like a great performance. It's just this mixture of like casting, and it's just, he's so entertaining to watch in this movie. I love Ben Affleck in this movie.
Somebody was saying that I was talking to Steve Harholtz. He said him and his other friend they loved it when the King came on, the young King, and they were laughing all the time. The audience was going to kick out the King.
Our audience didn't. I don't remember having a reaction to
it. No,
it.
not really. But I want to say, do you think it's interesting that Matt, and it's a script by Matt, it comes from Matt and Ben originally, right? And then they brought in Nicole.
Yeah, Matt Damon, I think, read the book, the nonfiction book.
Okay, it's a nonfiction book.
Yeah.
So they read this and they think this is we could take this film. Here's my one little theory of mine that we could make this a very topical film, but have fun being knights in medieval setting. Who could we direct that would be apropos for this? They go to Ridley Scott, and then they get Nicole to do the female version, the perspective. And there you got a nice little interesting brew. I mean, it very, very.
I don't know how the timeline would work because I mean, Ridley Scott's also one of those. I mean,
where his schedule's open or whatever.
He's directing so much. You look at what he's maybe doing next. He might be finally doing his Gladiator sequel next. Is one of the things I heard or read him say. But I don't know the timeline of that just because I don't know when Nicole Holofcener was brought in, whether Ridley Scott committed. I don't know the timeline.
Oh, here's a good example of how fast Ridley is. The whole Kevin Spacey debacle. That is just, I couldn't believe.
All the Money in the World and Last Duel are both edited by a friend of the show, not friend of the show, friend of mine, Claire Simpson.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
She given you insight to what?
No, I should say friend. We haven't talked in a while, but she edited the All the Money in the World stuff super fast because they shot it was like when I finally saw the movie, it's like a third of the movie or fourth of the movie, or It's a lot.
You when you see a Ridley Scott film, you're not thinking fast. You're not thinking taking the cheap route. Budget cuts or whatever. You're thinking you're seeing a giant A quality film, and see that turnaround and get Christopher Plummer in those scenes and have it out almost basically when they wanted it out.
Well, we got into this a little bit on our counselor episode where he was talking about don't have. One of the big things in production that takes a long time is production moves where you have to shoot 2 locations in one day. And so he was like, just make sure your set is, you can do 2 different sets out of one thing. Turn the camera around. We have the other set set up.
Exactly. Yeah.
He's got efficiency stuff. Like
he's almost got it down to
it is a
science.
It is a skill set of his.
Yeah, it is a skill set so that he can pull this off. Whereas, another like, I don't know, Scorsese. I don't know. I mean, some of these guys, it seems like they got to kind of ramp up to it.
Well, that's fine.
And really, he's just going ding, 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 ding.
To each their own.
Yeah, I love Scorsese. No,
whatever works most effectively.
Because if Marty ever hears this, I don't want him to think back. I love you, Marty. I love you.
Scorsese just shot 100 Days on Killers of the Flower Moon in Oklahoma. So.
Yeah. So yeah.
I don't know how long Ridley Scott's shooting. So.
But yeah, it's just I think it's just we're just amazed by if you look at his filmography and how prolific he is and the quality he maintains, it's just amazing.
I think the John Ford thing applies because I think it's the Spielberg too, where you go back to their filmography and you forget how many movies they made of a certain quality level. And the thing is, when Ridley Scott dies, we're all going to be like, I can't believe he made this many.
I get upset with this whole Spielberg backlash. I don't understand why some people have ignored him or dog him or whatever. You start racking up all these later day films, and I'm enjoying them all. I don't know what the deal is.
The lesser films are in a vacuum. The best film of another person's filmography by far.
So, but yeah, we'll have to do one on Spielberg at some time. Obviously.
Oh, we got the one planned for before the end of the year.
Tonight.
Another setup for. Yeah.
So,
Last Duel. I don't know when Last Duel is going to be available for. It's already left theaters in Evansville.
Yeah, but the Duelist is available all kinds of places. Did you see where I watched it?
Where'd you watch it?
I couldn't find my dang DVD, and I don't think I bought that new Blu-ray. It's already out of print.
Really, the new Blu-ray is?
It's like $85 in the market now.
I watched it on Canopy.
I watched it. I actually just pulled the trigger and paid for it and watched it on YouTube.
Wow. Canopy is up there with Hoopla as one of those services that if you have a library card, you can watch movies for free.
They wouldn't let me. I couldn't get my card to work. I tried to get in there.
Were you watching this? I don't think anybody from your work's going to be listening to this. Did you watch this at work or did you watch this?
Yeah, I had to go I had to go somewhere I had internet.
Because you famously don't have internet at your
house.
No,
but they type in your card number and everything,
there was a few hoops I had to jump through, but
I'll have to see if I can get mine to work because that sounds like a cool deal.
Yeah, 20. Well, I mean, Hoopla also works really well too.
I remember at one time everybody was just crazy about Ridley, and now he's kind of like, oh, another Ridley Scott film, but it's we should be more attentive.
Yeah. But Last Duel, whenever it's available, check it out. The Duelist is, I think it's a great movie, but it's also just one of our boldest artists' first thing that he comes out. Again, not fully formed, but still impressive.
Yeah, so there's a lot to digest there, and you got a great cast to watch. So,
all right, thanks everybody for listening. Ted, do you have anything else?
No, go see Dune.
Next week's episode, go see Dune.